Just last week I was sitting with a friend of mine, someone I've known for many years, someone who, by all external measures, has a very successful life. Good career, loving family, financial stability, all the things we're told should make us happy. But as we sat there with our cups of tea, he looked at me with exhausted eyes and said something that broke my heart. He said, "I feel like I'm drowning. Every day, I wake up with a knot in my stomach. My mind races constantly. I can't sleep properly. I worry about everything, big things, small things, things that haven't even happened. I feel anxious all the time and I don't know how to make it stop." As I listened to him, I realized he was articulating something that has become almost epidemic in our modern world. Stress and anxiety have become the background noise of our lives, so constant that we almost accept them as normal, as just the price we pay for living in today's world. We wear our stress like a badge of honor, proof that we're working hard, that we're responsible, that we're taking life seriously. We pop pills to manage our anxiety, drink coffee to push through our exhaustion, scroll through our phones to numb our worried minds, and tell ourselves that this is just how life is. But I want to tell you something today that might challenge what you've come to accept. Stress and anxiety are not inevitable features of modern life. They are not badges of honor. They are not proof of your commitment or importance. They are signals, important signals from your body and mind that something is out of balance, that something needs to change, that you're operating in ways that are fundamentally misaligned with your well-being. And more importantly, there are ways to deal with stress and anxiety that actually work, that don't just mask the symptoms but address the root causes, that don't require you to abandon your responsibilities or escape from life, but rather help you engage with life from a different place within yourself. Let me start by telling you a story. There was once a village near a river, and every monsoon season the river would flood and water would enter the homes at the edge of the village. Year after year this would happen. And year after year, the villagers would respond the same way. They would frantically bail water out of their homes, working tirelessly, stressed and anxious, trying to keep the water from destroying their possessions. They would exhaust themselves in this effort, and every year they would say, "This is just how it is. The monsoon comes, the river floods, and we must deal with it." One year, a young engineer visited the village during the dry season. He observed the situation and said to the villagers, "Why do you spend all your energy bailing water when the flood comes? Why not spend this calm season building a wall that will redirect the water before it enters your homes?" The villagers looked at him like he was speaking nonsense. "We don't have time for that," they said. "We're too busy preparing for the next flood, too worried about when it will come, too stressed about all the work we'll have to do when it arrives." The engineer smiled sadly and said, "So you're too stressed about managing the flood to prevent the flood?" Some of the villagers heard the wisdom in this and decided to build the wall. It took effort, time, and resources during the calm season when the crisis wasn't immediate. But when the monsoon came, their homes stayed dry while their neighbors were frantically bailing water, stressed and exhausted as always. The ones who built the wall had invested in prevention, rather than just responding to crisis. This story captures something essential about how most of us deal with stress and anxiety. We're so busy bailing water, so consumed with managing the symptoms that we never step back to address the causes. We're too stressed to deal with our stress. We're too anxious to examine our anxiety. We're in constant crisis mode, reacting, coping, surviving, but never actually solving the underlying problem. So let me share with you what I've learned about dealing with stress and anxiety, not through theory, but through observation, through conversations with hundreds of people struggling with these issues, through my own journey, and through ancient wisdom that remains profoundly relevant today. And I want to organize this around several key understandings that, if you truly internalize them and act on them, can transform your relationship with stress and anxiety. The first understanding is this: most of your stress and anxiety is not about what's actually happening right now. It's about what happened in the past that you're still carrying, or what might happen in the future that you're trying to control. Think about it honestly. When you feel anxious, what are you anxious about? Usually it's not about the present moment itself. Right now, in this exact moment, are you in danger? Is there an immediate threat? For most of us, most of the time, the answer is no. Right now, you're safe, you're breathing, you're alive. The present moment, when you actually attend to it, is usually okay. But your mind isn't in the present moment. Your mind is replaying that conversation from yesterday, analyzing what you said wrong, worrying about what the other person thinks, carrying shame or regret. Or your mind is in tomorrow, next week, next year, imagining all the things that could go wrong, playing out worst-case scenarios, trying to control outcomes that haven't happened yet and may never happen. Your body responds to these mental time travels as if they're real current threats, releasing stress hormones, activating your fight or flight response, creating all the physical sensations of anxiety even though you're actually sitting safely in your home. This is the first key insight. Your stress and anxiety are almost always about thoughts, not reality. They're about your mental narratives about the past and future, not about the actual present moment. And this is incredibly empowering to recognize because it means you're not a victim of external circumstances. You're not anxious because of what's happening. You're anxious because of what you're thinking about what's happening or what might happen. Let me tell you about a woman I counseled who had severe anxiety. She would wake up every morning with her heart racing, feeling overwhelmed before the day even began. When we explored what she was anxious about, it was never about what was happening right then. It was a cascade of worries. What if I mess up at work? What if my boss is disappointed? What if I lose my job? What if I can't pay my bills? What if I end up alone and destitute? She was living through an entire catastrophic future in her mind every single morning, and her body was responding as if it was all happening. I asked her a simple question. Right now, in this moment, have you lost your job? She shook her head. Right now, are you unable to pay your bills? No. Right now, are you alone and destitute? No. So right now, what's actually wrong? She paused, looked around and quietly said, nothing. Right now, nothing is wrong. That recognition was the beginning of her healing. She started practicing coming back to the present moment whenever she felt anxiety rising, asking herself what's actually wrong right now in this moment. And almost always the answer was nothing. The anxiety was about imagined futures, not present reality. So the first practice for dealing with stress and anxiety is to cultivate presence. And I know this sounds like spiritual cliché, but stay with me because this is practical and powerful. Throughout your day, especially when you notice stress or anxiety rising, pause. Take 3 deep breaths and ask yourself, right now, in this exact moment, what's actually happening? Am I safe? Am I okay? Bring your attention to your immediate sensory experience. What can you see, hear, feel, smell? Ground yourself in the present moment, because the present moment, when you actually attend to it, is rarely as threatening as your thoughts about past or future. This doesn't mean you ignore real problems or responsibilities. It means you distinguish between productive planning or problem solving and unproductive worry. Planning is specific, time-limited, and action-oriented. I need to prepare for this presentation, so I'll spend an hour this evening organizing my thoughts. That's productive. Worry is repetitive, unfocused, and paralyzing. What if the presentation goes badly? What if they think I'm incompetent? What if this ruins my career? That's unproductive. When you notice unproductive worry, bring yourself back to the present and ask, is there a specific action I can take right now? If yes, take it. If no, let it go and return to what you're actually doing in this moment. The second understanding is this: you cannot control most of what you're stressed about, and trying to control it is what's creating your stress. This is perhaps the hardest truth to accept, but it's also the most liberating once you do. You have very limited control in life. You cannot control other people, what they think, what they feel, what they do, how they respond to you. You cannot control external circumstances, the economy, the traffic, the weather, global events. You cannot control outcomes, whether your efforts will succeed, whether your plans will work out, whether things will go the way you hope. What you can control is very narrow. Your own choices, your own actions, your own responses, your own thoughts when you catch them, your own words, your own effort. That's it. That's the sphere of your control. Everything else is outside your control. And here's the key insight. Stress and anxiety arise when you try to control what's outside your control while neglecting what's within your control. Think about what you stress about. Is usually things in your control or outside your control. What if they don't like me? Outside your control. What if the project fails? Outside your control, you can control your effort but not the outcome. What if something bad happens? Outside your control. What will people think? Outside your control. Most of our stress is about trying to control the uncontrollable. And it's exhausting, futile, and anxiety-producing because you're fighting against reality. There's a beautiful concept in Stoic philosophy called the dichotomy of control, which essentially says, focus your energy and concern on what's within your control and accept what's outside your control. This doesn't mean you don't care about outcomes. It means you focus on your inputs, your effort, your choices, your character, and you release attachment to outcomes you cannot control. You do your absolute best and then surrender the results. Let me share a story. There was a farmer who would pray every day for rain during dry season. He was stressed and anxious about the drought. What if it doesn't rain? What if my crops fail? What if my family starves? He lost sleep worrying about rain, something completely outside his control. One day, a wise traveler asked him, "Can you make it rain?" The farmer said, "No, of course not. Only God controls the rain." The traveler asked then, "Why are you spending your energy worrying about it? Focus on what you can control. Can you improve your irrigation? Can you plant drought-resistant crops? Can you diversify your income? Can you build storage for when rain does come?" The farmer realized he had been so focused on what he couldn't control that he had neglected what he could control. This is what most of us do. We're so anxious about outcomes we can't control that we neglect the actions we can control. So here's the practice. When you feel stressed or anxious, ask yourself, what here is within my control and what is outside my control? Make a clear distinction. Then focus all your energy on what's within your control. Take action there and consciously release what's outside your control. This doesn't mean you don't care. It means you're wise enough to know the difference between care and control. For what's outside your control, practice a phrase that can be deeply calming. I've done what I can do. The rest is not in my hands. I release it. Say this, mean it, and notice how your nervous system responds. There's a softening, a relaxation that comes from releasing the burden of trying to control the uncontrollable. The third understanding is this. Much of your stress comes from overcommitment and lack of boundaries. You're trying to do too much, be too much to too many people, meet too many expectations, fulfill too many roles. You say yes to everything because you're afraid of disappointing people, afraid of being seen as lazy or uncommitted, afraid of missing out, afraid of not being enough. And so your life becomes overfilled with obligations, commitments, and responsibilities, many of which aren't actually aligned with your values or necessary for your well-being. Let me paint a picture. Imagine you're carrying a backpack. Every time you say yes to something, you're putting a rock in your backpack. Some rocks are necessary, your core responsibilities like work, family, health, but many rocks are optional. Obligations you've taken on out of guilt, fear, or habit. Social events you don't want to attend. Committees you don't need to be on. Projects that aren't yours to manage. Other people's problems that you've made your responsibility. People's expectations that you've accepted without questioning whether they're reasonable. You keep adding rocks, and your backpack gets heavier and heavier. Your shoulders hurt, your back aches, you're exhausted, you're stressed, and instead of taking rocks out of the backpack, instead of saying no to new rocks, you keep accepting more Keep trying to carry everything, keep pushing yourself harder, and you wonder why you're anxious and overwhelmed. The practice here is ruthless prioritization and clear boundaries. You need to take inventory of what's in your backpack. List everything you're committed to, everything you're responsible for, everything that's demanding your time and energy. Then ask of each item, is this essential? Does this align with my core values? Is this truly my responsibility? Does this nourish me or drain me? Would saying no to this be terrible, or would it actually be healthy? And then, with courage, start taking rocks out of the backpack. Start saying no. Start delegating. Start letting go of obligations that aren't serving you or anyone else. Start disappointing some people so you can stop disappointing yourself. Start setting boundaries around your time, your energy, your availability. This will feel uncomfortable initially because you're not used to it. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries will resist, but your well-being depends on it. I know a man who was on the verge of breakdown from stress. He was working 60 hours a week, coaching his kids' sports teams, serving on multiple volunteer boards, maintaining an exhausting social calendar, trying to be everything to everyone. When we looked at his commitments, he realized that many of them he had said yes to out of guilt or obligation, not genuine desire. He started saying no. He stepped down from boards. He reduced his volunteer commitments to one he truly cared about. He cleared his social calendar of obligatory events. He set boundaries at work. The first month was hard. People were surprised, some were disappointed, but within 3 months his stress had decreased dramatically. His anxiety had lessened, and ironically, the quality of his contributions in the areas he stayed committed to actually improved because he wasn't spread so thin. Your time and energy are finite. You cannot do everything. You cannot be everything to everyone. And trying to do so is what's killing you. You need to choose. What are your true priorities? What actually matters? What are you willing to protect even if it means disappointing others? And then structure your life around those priorities and learn to say no to everything else without guilt. The fourth understanding is this: your lifestyle is either feeding your stress or healing it. How you eat, how you move, how you sleep, what you consume mentally and emotionally, these either increase your baseline stress and anxiety or decrease it. And for most people, their lifestyle is a stress multiplier rather than a stress reducer. You're not sleeping enough because you're scrolling on your phone until midnight, watching anxiety-inducing news, or working late. You're not moving your body regularly because you're too busy or tired. You're eating processed foods and sugar that spike and crash your blood sugar, which directly affects your mood and anxiety levels. You're drinking multiple cups of coffee, which is a stimulant that can increase anxiety. You're consuming a constant stream of negative news, comparison-inducing social media, and stimulating content that keeps your nervous system in a state of activation. You're not spending time in nature, not engaging in activities that calm you, not doing things that genuinely restore you. And then you wonder why you feel anxious. Your lifestyle is literally creating the chemical and neurological conditions for anxiety. Your body is in a constant state of stress response because of how you're living, what you're consuming, and what you're exposing yourself to. The practice here is to audit your lifestyle honestly. How many hours are you sleeping? If it's less than 7, that's contributing to your anxiety. Sleep deprivation directly impairs emotional regulation and increases anxiety. How much are you moving your body? Exercise is one of the most powerful anxiety reducers because it metabolizes stress hormones and releases calming neurochemicals. If you're sedentary, that's contributing to your anxiety. What are you eating? A diet high in processed foods, sugar and caffeine, and low in whole foods, healthy fats and nutrients directly affects your mental health. What are you consuming mentally? If you're constantly consuming news, social media, and stimulating content, that's keeping your nervous system in fight or flight mode. You need to make changes here. Non-negotiable changes. Prioritize sleep. Turn off screens an hour before bed. Create a sleep sanctuary. Move your body every day, even if it's just a 30-minute walk. Eat real food that nourishes you. Reduce or eliminate caffeine if you're anxious. Radically reduce news consumption and social media. Spend time in nature. Engage in calming activities like reading, gentle music, time with loved ones, hobbies that absorb you. These aren't luxuries. These are essentials for managing stress and anxiety. Your nervous system needs care. Your brain needs the right fuel. Your body needs rest and movement. When you provide these, your baseline anxiety decreases significantly. When you don't, no amount of mental techniques will fully work. Because your biology is working against you. The fifth understanding is this: you need practices that regulate your nervous system. Your autonomic nervous system has two main modes: sympathetic, which is your stress response, fight or flight, designed for dealing with threats, and parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest mode, designed for healing, restoration, and calm. In modern life, most people are stuck in sympathetic mode most of the time. Your nervous system is constantly activated, always on alert, never fully relaxing. This creates chronic stress and anxiety. You need daily practices that activate your parasympathetic nervous system, that signal to your body that it's safe, that it can relax. The most powerful and accessible of these practices is breath work. Your breath is the only part of your autonomic nervous system that you can consciously control, and you can use it to shift your nervous system state. When you're stressed or anxious, your breathing becomes shallow and rapid. This signals danger to your body, which increases stress hormones. But when you breathe slowly and deeply, especially extending your exhale, this activates your parasympathetic nervous system and signals safety to your body. It literally calms your stress response. Here's a simple practice you can do anywhere, anytime.